Stress and anxiety, how to begin thinking of these states in a different way and how to start to reduce them. When someone asked me this question, my mind immediately saw that table from Homeland Security website where levels of threat are represented by increasingly brighter colors. And this is how I think about stress and anxiety as a continuum that has to do with survival, right? Defending ourselves against something. And the anxiety beginning not at green, where you're completely at peace, but where you start becoming aware of some danger to your well being, where you begin scanning the waters for the enemy ships because you know they're near. And it slowly increases in intensity until the danger is imminent, evacuate the elderly, and then you start experiencing real stress. So what is really important to understand about stress and anxiety that these states are generated by thinking. In order for them to happen, there has to be a kind of a sandwich. There has to be something external your mind locks in on. Oh my gosh, I'm about to be overdrawn, or I don't like this bump in my body, or we're about to start World War III. Whatever it is the mind focuses on externally. But then there is this part that is a lot more elusive, a lot harder to pinpoint, but something we have a lot more control over, and something that I write about, which is who you decided you are. That isn't really who you are. It's just a set of ideas that you have embraced. And I will give you examples about that. But one more thing to say about thinking, that because these states exist and get generated in our thinking, we can approach reducing these states from two angles. One is the angle of hardware, and one is the angle of software, meaning software means everything that was installed after production, beliefs, your views of the world, how you think your world works, etc. We can question these things, and you will be surprised how deeply you can go and how much your experience of life can change and become more peaceful, more engaged, more joyous and alive. The hardware point of view is there certain mechanics behind the thinking, and this is why mindfulness works. And I will talk a little bit about that later. But let me talk a little bit more about the sandwich because I think it's important. For example, a person who is a hypochondriac might look at an external stimuli to their anxiety or their stress, and they might find, say, a bump in their breast. And the doctor says, this is just a cyst. Look, everything is fine. And for a moment, that person feels relief. They have no problem letting go of that judgment that that particular thought, that particular threat was real. So for a moment, their system goes into the green state. But because the other part of the sandwich has not been questioned, it's going to try and find something that resonates and validates its feeling somewhere else. And so it continues saying, well, this threat has passed, but what about the next one? And what about the next one? And what about the next one? So that level of anxiety never quite dies. And when I worked with people who are hypochondriacs, the fear that the identity holds on to has actually nothing to do with health. It has usually something to do with the fact that they are terrified that they will not be able to live out their purpose, that something outside of them holds the power of whether or not they will be able to do what they came here to do. That is a belief that we can let go of. And so if you do release that belief, next time you encounter a disease, it's going to be like, okay, so what do we do? And I'm still living my destiny. Another good example is a person who is deeply, deeply afraid of judgment, who believes that the contents of another person's thought has power over taking something away from them. And that is a setup for lifelong anxiety because, there's so many people in the world and they all think different thoughts. And that person for a while might be able to keep a controlled environment and their anxiety level is at the lightest orange. But then they have a teenager, or they decide to marry someone who their community of origin does not approve, or they decide to follow their heart, all of a sudden their behavior is not in alignment with what is agreeable or acceptable in the community, and then the stress levels begin rising. Here's where we talk about the software. We can question both the thinking about the external world. Hey, did you really judge me, or did you gossip about me? Did you take my money? Am I really overdrawn? True or not? We can question that. We can also shift our focus here, and we can question something that's going to be a little harder, but that's going to be the root. If we pull it out, we're free. Who would I be without the thought, I am someone that has to surrender my power, for example, to another person's judgment? Who would I be without that thought? You don't always have the time or the luxury of time to question the beliefs. So in this case, it helps to understand how the hardware works, how the mechanics of your thinking work. And when we understand that it is our mind's focus that makes a thought come alive, anytime your mind focuses on a thought, just think about, I don't know, presidential election right now. All of a sudden you see pictures, right? That is the power of your mind. That's what creates your internal experience. And it is the focus of the attention on a particular thought or set of thoughts that make that cluster of thoughts become bigger and bigger and bigger and full of all kinds of different feelings and emotions, basically special effects of your internal theater. And if you know two things, that number one, that if you find yourself in a quality of thinking that isn't desirable, that it means your mind somewhere automatically is focusing on certain thoughts that are not great. And that those thoughts are not reality. Those thoughts are just like Polaroid pictures of reality. They're representations of something in reality. It's absolutely safe to drop them. It's absolutely safe to practice what Buddhists or spiritual people call mindfulness, which means focusing your attention on something that is real now. It could be something real that you feel inside, like your center, that is underneath and around all of the buzz of the thinking. Or it could be dancing, it could be folding laundry, it could be really touching, like I'm touching my book right now and I'm noticing the texture. It's getting your mind to come into the present. Do you know what a funny thing about that is that people who fought in the World War II reported that they were the happiest while they were fighting, while they were in the war, not killing people, but just being in those situations, because they weren't thinking about the war. They were forced into the present moment, moment by moment by moment. And that is when they had permission to drop their thinking about everything else. And so just knowing that it is your focus that makes anxiety or stress come alive can help you gain a little bit more control over it. And the trick is to shift the focus from something in your head to something that is real now, and keep it there long enough for that cloud of thinking that was stirred up by your focus to settle. That's what happens when I just talked about presidential election a couple of minutes ago, and you probably already forgot about it. That's how thought works. Anyway, this is a lot. I hope this was helpful. Also, guys, I still have some signed copies left. They are at whatever price they are right now, but it's because I bought them pre-COVID. If I have to reorder them, they may be a little bit more. If you want one, get it. Thank you.